of you have heard inklings of Son-Au-Graphe or UFli, but are not sure what they are, I'll be quick. UFli is an evidence and research-based phonics program that is explicit and systematic to teach students the foundational skills for reading. It has detailed lesson plans and a PowerPoint presentation that focuses on phonemic awareness, reading, and spelling. Each lesson reviews and gives students time to practice what has been learned previously, and also teaches a new concept. More info can be found here. Now, UFli is a great program to use if English is the target language in your classroom, but what does this have to do with Son-Au-Graphe? Well, teachers at Greater Essex County District School Board adapted the UFli Foundations program with permissions from the University of Florida to support the target language of French in French immersion classrooms. This UFli adapted program is called Son-Au-Graphe, and it shares a similar layout with UFli: phonemic awareness, reading and spelling, with detailed lesson plans and a PowerPoint presentation for each one. Now, where do I find these files? So first you're going to go to publicboard.ca, click on Programs and Learning, go to French as a Second Language, and you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click on View Teaching Resources. Once you're there, you're going to click on Son-Au-Graphe, and there you'll find all of the files and lessons. Now that you have found all the files, and there are many files, where should you go first? Well, first you're going to find Le Guide, which up to date has 75 lessons. And if you scroll past the table of contents, you will find the order in which the lessons should be followed and a guide to help with the pronunciation of the French sounds. After that, you will find a detailed lesson plan for each sound. Then we have the PowerPoints, and they are organized in different folders. Once you open the presentation of the lesson you are teaching, you will find the different steps on the thumbnails to the left. Make sure you click on the Present button to have the slides in full screen. Le soutien à mise en œuvre des leçons is very important to go through and have on hand during your lessons, as it gives a detailed explanation on how each section should be taught, how long each section should take, as well as what resources you may need for yourself and for the classroom. Le Suivi de progrès is a tool you can use to assess students on what they have learned according to each lesson. Les mots réguliers, les mots utiles, et les phrases is what you can assess your class on each week. Le Tableau de fusion is a blending board that makes it easier to manipulate the different sounds in a word to make new ones. One does have to get out of the PowerPoint to use this, so teachers may prefer to write words on the whiteboard instead with a whiteboard marker. There are also decodable texts available for most of the lessons. These texts are seen on the PowerPoint presentation as well, but teachers may wish to print these out and use them as a reading comprehension activity at the end of the lesson. Now, important things for each of your students to have is a dry erase surface such as a whiteboard or a sentence strip, dry erase markers and an eraser, and for word work, magnetic letters or letter tiles are great to have on hand, but a whiteboard and dry erase marker should work great too. Now, for your first year French immersion students, either kindergarten or grade 1, you would start at the first lesson. Now, in between lessons 38 and 39, they have written that grade 1 would start with a review of lessons 1 to 38 before moving forward. The school board I work at, French immersion begins in grade 1. So for us, it would be the grade 2 classes that would begin around lesson 39. Quick reading assessment with your students can help you see what sounds the majority of your students can read and spell and where most of the support is needed. For this example, I'm going to start with lesson 29. I'm now going to go look for the PowerPoint presentation that goes with that lesson. Each lesson is divided into 2 days, so let's begin day 1. And that starts with conscience phonémique. As you see, I have my PowerPoint, my detailed lesson from the guide, and the page that shows the timing and the details for each step. Now, each lesson begins with a schedule, so students know what to expect. And as we move to the first part of the lesson with conscience phonemique, you will see that on the lesson plan, there are two parts, fusionner and segmenté. Because there's no writing in this part of the lesson, I usually like to start the lesson at the carpet. And here for fusionner, I will say the sounds. For example, a, t, a, and the students will have to blend together to say the word a, te. I like to tell the students that we're gluing the sounds, on colle les sons, so they can remember fusionner. After we go through all of the words, so k, o, t, a, ko, te, etc., I'll move on to segmenté. And for this part, I like to tell the students that we're cutting up the word. I create scissors with my hands, on coupe les mots. And I will say the words such as café, and students will segment the word k, a, f, a. As you notice, during the time that you are following the instructions for fusionner and segmenté, you will leave this slide up as you follow along with your lesson plan. Next is Exercice visuel. Here, you will go through the PowerPoint with each slide showing a different letter. Students will say the letter name and the sound. The instructions give an example with a speech bubble saying Y épelle I. I like to point at the slide and ask, quelle est la lettre? Quel est le son? For example, quelle est la lettre? Q. Quel est le son? K. Quelle est la lettre? X. Quel est le son? X. Quelle est la lettre? Z. Quel est le son? Z. So then they kind of get into a rhythm. And you just go through all of the letters. Next is Exercice auditif. Here, you are not changing the slides, but instead you are saying the sounds on the list provided, and students will write the letters on their sentence strips or whiteboards. You'll notice that there can be multiple letters for a specific sound, just like in this first example here. So you would say the sound k, and students will either write the letter C or K or Q because they all make the sound k. Once you've gone through all of the letter sounds provided, you change the slide, and then we are moving on to step 4. Here we are doing some blending. Your lesson plan gives you the words to use. So if you wish to use the Blending Board app, you can get it ready by adding the letters required, or you can use the whiteboard marker and write them on the board as you go. I like to have the students back at the carpet for this part. So if you're using the Blending Board app, you're first going to have to get out of that presentation. And you're going to click on the app to find the sounds that you need. So it's in Paramètres, and you're going to click to add or click to remove sounds that you do not need. For this one, we won't need any vowels with any accent. Once that's all finished, you scroll down and you click Enregistrer. Now you're going to follow along. So the first word here is qui. So you're going to start with k and then the vowel e, qui. As you write them, have students read the sounds in the words and blend them together. Here you can use little Conan boxes, but our students tap their arm or create a fist and pound out the sound. Here, I am just showing how to change the word around by clicking on the first part, the middle part, or the last part of the word. The main goal is to have the students sound out and blend the sounds together. We are on the final step for our first day of this lesson, which is learning the new concept. The lesson plan lays out in detail what to say for each part. So if we follow along, we would say out loud to the students, Voici la lettre E accent aigu. On peut trouver la lettre E accent aigu dans le mot éléphant. Then we would change the slide. And we would say, on peut trouver la lettre E accent aigu ou le son E au début d'un mot, comme dans le mot école. Here, I would pause and have the students sound out the word, so E, K, A, L, école, and go over what it means if it's a new vocabulary word for them. The lesson continues with how the sound is found in the middle of the word and also at the end of the word. We then look at the pronunciation of the sound. We see what our mouth is doing. We review that it is an oral sound, so the air is only coming out of the mouth, not the nose. I have the students put their fingers under their noses to see if they feel any air. We also look at how it's a voiced sound, so I have them put their fingers on their throat and see if they can feel their vocal cords vibrate as they say the sound A. Then we review that it is a continuous sound. We start with our hands together and we stretch them out farther and farther away as we elongate the sound A. If you have a picture of the sound A, you can put that on your sound wall now. The lesson then has the students practice writing the letter. Using that word strip that shows the ground, grass, and sky is great here to have them practice their printing. Keeping the PowerPoint in presentation mode will show the students how to write the letter out in uppercase and in lowercase letters too. Once the class has practiced writing the letter, then we practice reading the words together. If you notice, the lesson plan shows a je fais, vous faites, I do, we do method. So it's always important to demonstrate how to sound out the sounds when reading, and then have the class do it. So for example, it says here, regardez-moi lire, été. So I would say eight, été. And then we would read the following words together. Bébé, crier, vélo, clé. Lastly, students try spelling words with the new concept. Again, there is an I do where you slowly sound out the sounds as you spell them on the board. So for example, the word météo, I would be saying o as I spell it on the board. Once you've modeled the how-to, it is the students' turn to write the rest of the words on their whiteboard. Once the class is finished writing the words, you are finished day 1. Day 2. We begin showing the class the visual schedule for the day and dive into a quick review on the previous lesson, such as going over the letter and the sound. Then, we review where we see the placement of the letter and practice reading the words. You'll see that I have moved my lesson plan back to step 5 to remind me of the vocabulary to use when reviewing the new concept with the class. We also practice how to write the letter again, but sometimes, instead of having them use their whiteboard marker, I have them use their finger or their doigt magique to write out the letter in the air or on the carpet. Then we practice again our reading strategies as we go through the words learned with the new concept. After we review, we begin word work. Here, if you have magnetic letters, you can use them. If not, students can use their whiteboard markers on their boards or strips. The guide gives you tools such as tapigraph. For this part, students will practice encoding, which is writing, and decoding, which is reading. The words you will be using are listed on the lesson. So for example, you will ask your students to make the first word, such as météo. Fais le mot météo. Then you will ask them, enlève la lettre M et la lettre O dans le mot météo. Quel est le nouveau mot? Here, students are required to use their reading skills to read the new word, été. Then you will ask them to spell the next word listed by changing the words they have in front of them. Montre-moi comment changer été à bébé. Now, you will ask them to change some of the letters and create the next word listed. Maintenant, efface les deux lettres B dans le mot bébé et remplace-les avec des M. Quel est le nouveau mot? They now have to read the new word, may. And again, instead of asking them to change a letter, you will ask them to spell the next word listed by changing the word in front of them. Montre-moi comment changer mémé à pépé. Here the students are now using their encoding skills to spell out the next word. The goal during word work is to have the students reading and spelling using familiar sounds. For this next step, we are looking at les mots utiles, or heart words. In the lesson plan, you will find that there are asterisks beside some words. It is because these words have sound blends that have not been taught yet. Thus, they are irregular, but only temporarily. Each lesson gives the class a chance to read the words from previous lessons and review the sounds they know, which are represented by a blue square underneath the sound, and the sounds they need to remember by heart, which are represented by a heart. Once the class is finished reading, they are given the chance to practice spelling some of the words reviewed on their whiteboards. You are then prompted to introduce the new mot utile or heart word for this lesson. It is A, and you will practice by reading and spelling it. Here we are at our last step, connected text. Here students will practice reading the words and sentences together to practice their fluency. The sentences shown on the PowerPoint are under the Lecture section of the lesson plan. Remember to model how to read a sentence and have the students do it along with you. Once the class has read the sentences, students will practice writing sentences that teachers read out loud from the écriture part of the lesson plan. Once students have gone over their sentences, there is a decodable text that the class can read together. Here, students continue to practice their fluency, and teachers can go over vocabulary and its meaning. Once that's done, that is the end of the lesson. As an extension, Son-Au-Graphe has provided the decodable texts from the lesson as a sheet for students to read and then draw a picture to show their comprehension. Teachers can choose to use this after the lesson and/or when teachers are pulling students for Tier 2 instruction. Le suivi de progrès is to be used after the completion of the lesson, so not after day 1, but after day 2. It is used to progress monitor and check in on the students' understanding of the new concept. It is organized by lesson and shows which words they can be assessed on, les mots réguliers et les mots utiles, as well as a sentence to write using the new concepts learned. Some teachers will choose to do this after every lesson, while some will do it after the 2 lessons. Please do listen to the videos provided by OMLTA on how to implement Son-Au-Graphe as part of your French structured literacy program. Bon courage!